Today we're going to learn how to make readable notes in the Doom engine like this one. There's some more of them over here. I'm a big fan of these kinds of notes. I think they add a lot to the experience of a map or a game. They make a place feel lived in and real, but also they give the player the choice whether or not they want to read all the notes and get every last bit of lore or just ignore them and run through. I've noticed this one's on the floor and the writing appears at the bottom of the screen, whereas this one, the writing appears in the middle of the screen. I actually didn't realise it was done this way in Hedon. I put all of the text at the bottom of the screen in the Gaudy Goblin, but nobody complained about it, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, there's going to be two halves to this. The first half is to put the text on the screen, and then the second half is to take the text off the screen again. And you might think, well, that sounds easy enough, doesn't it, taking the text off the screen again? But actually, I think that's the tricky part, and I'm going to be going over two different ways to take the text off the screen. One of them, I think, is an improvement over the other. So let's have a look at how one of these notes is programmed. Here's the one that's on the wall. You can see there is a script, a repeatable action when the player presses use on the line here. It's script number 3. Let's have a look at its script. Here it is. This first part puts the black shadow behind where the text is going to go. The second part puts the text on top. This part is obviously optional, and we do it for we set the font first, and then we do a message using that font. So Ole mid. This is a Hedon specific texture which Hedon has to put these shadows on the screen. You don't have this if you're doing regular Doom. This is Hedon only. Or you could make something like this if you wanted to. And the actual message in this case isn't very important because we're using this special font which just puts the overlay on the screen. Although I will have to go over these, what some of these things mean. Let's have a look at the actual message. Okay, so we put it to small font, so we're just going to put actual text in. This is also a Hedon font, by the way, but Doom obviously has fonts. Okay, HUD message. So the first part here is the actual text that's going to be put on this line. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's got an S colon at the front. Don't worry too much about that. It's just about the data type being a string. And then we got some flags which go with it. Plain, this is as opposed to a fade in or a fade out. It's plain is generally what we're going to be using. So you'll have this flag, and then we also have this log flag. This puts it in the log, the console log. So if the player presses the console button, they'll be able to go back and read the messages that came out. Personally, I wouldn't have had this here. I think because it's a note that you can read over and over again as many times as you want, you don't need it in the console. This is usually for things that the player might have missed, like during a cutscene and they were like, oh, what happened? They press the console and bring it up to reread. But if you can go back and read the note itself, I don't think this is necessary. Anyway, the next number is the data channel that we're putting this text into. This is important. Up here we used 9999 for the overlay, and here we're using 123. Basically, as long as you don't use the same number over and over again, you're fine. So if you'd have done 1 and then another 1, then you're putting the data into the same channel as the previous one, and it will override what was in there. So normally we're just going to go 1, 2, 3 through the lines of the note. You could have put whatever numbers you wanted here, really, as long as they're different to one another. Right, this is the color. Untranslated means it's going to be the actual color that's on the actual font itself. If you want a different color here, you can... I'll just get the documentation up real quick and show you. You can have one of these colors. You could put one of these flags in if you want a different colored text. And, okay. Next, we've got the X and Y coordinates. Now, these are a bit weird. Well, certainly the X is, because this is X and this is Y. So you'll think, well, 1.5, that's a very strange number to be in the X channel. But again, if we look at the documentation, it will explain it. So there's several different ranges here. and they're explained what they do here. 1.5 is in this range, which is basically means we're centering the line of dialogue where we're putting it rather than starting the line of dialogue from where we're putting it. 1.5 is halfway between 1 and 2. So this is going to be the middle of the range, which is the middle of the screen, and we're putting the middle of the text in the middle of the screen. So you're basically always going to want 1.5, because if you want the text centered on the screen, that's how you do it. And then Y is much more straightforward. This is the vertical position. 0.5 being the center of the screen, 0.84 is just a bit higher, and 5.2 is a bit lower. So we're just changing it by 0.02 to move down to the next line each time. If you wanted to put the text at the bottom of the screen, as I usually did, then you'd probably start from like 0.76 and then do 0.78 and 0.8 and 0.82, etc. This last number is the amount of time it's going to be on the screen. Personally, I don't really like the idea of the notes expiring while you're reading them. 25 seconds should be plenty of time, I suppose, but it is what it is. You know, this is a timeout. And up here, 1.5, yeah, center. So this gets drawn in the center and has the same time and is the background. So that's how you put the text on the screen, basically. Let's make one in our own little test map. So I made this special little table in my test map. We're going to make this note readable. Right now, I can't read it. So here it is. Let's make the lines, first of all, that are going to be the usable lines that go around it. You know what, actually, there's a little trick I like to do. Sometimes the objects are not as big as you think they are. See, that's how big the square we made is, but the piece of paper is actually quite a lot bigger, so I'm going to make our square a bit bigger. I will probably just move it up to here, move it out, let's say 2 pixels each way. Still probably a little bit small, but it's closer. Oops. Yeah, it's going to have to do. Okay, now let's put a script on these lines. Type 80, script execute, repeatable, player presses use. Where are we up to? Script 5. Just let me move this into the screen for you guys. Okay. Script 5. I like to space the brackets out like that. Okay, let's make some more space. Here we go. So set font first of all. And we have, what is it? Overlay T mid, overlay texture mid. HUD message. I don't think it matters what's in this string at all. HUD message plain. Let's use the 9s, same as Zan did. Untranslated color and the standard 1.5, 0.5, middle of the screen. 25 seconds, let's do more. Let's do 60. We've got to do 0.0, by the way. It's got to be a float. If you do an int, I think it will do game ticks instead of seconds. All right, let's set the font back to, oops, set font to the small font. Oh God, I'm going to have to come up with, okay, so I was going to do a baked potato recipe. That's what this is going to be. It's going to be pretty cool. I haven't like planned ahead. I'm going to have to make this up on the fly. Okay, in brackets it's going to be like this note appears to be a very good. I'm not going to put it in the log, but it is going to be in data channel 1. I'm running out of screen space. Okay, let's move this over. Standard 1.5. We're going for the middle of the screen, I guess. Let's go 0. Or 6. Let's have it a bit higher because it's the information line. And 60 seconds. Okay, I'm just going to copy this line. I'm going to leave a gap so it's clearer to me what's going on here. Data channels 2, 3, and 4. And the Y coordinate, I'm going to go straight to 5, and then 5, 2, 5, 4. These are going to be our lines of actual information. Step 1. Step 2, put the colon in the wrong place. That was good. Alright, there we go. That should cover all the information you need to make the baked potato. Let's see if it works. Here it is. Let's press use. There we go. This note appears to be a baked potato recipe. Step 1, locate a baked potato. Anyway, there could be a bit more of a gap, but the main problem is the text just stays on the screen. So this will bring us to the second half of the problemo. I said I'd go over 2 different ways of getting rid of the text. The way it's done in Hedon, we have these lines here around that when you walk over them, they will clear the text. So the idea is you'll be in here, you'll read the note, and then as you walk away, it'll be cleared. And the same kind of thing is true for this note. You read it, and then you walk across one of these lines, I think, and it will clear it. I have 2 things I don't like about this approach. The first of them is that it clutters up the geometry of your levels with all these extra lines. But the other reason is probably more important, is that it's just unreliable. I've seen many people play through Hedon and get text stuck on their screen as they're walking around just because they didn't quite trigger one of these lines, and I can demonstrate how that can happen right now. If I read this note from this direction and then walk backwards, I don't cross the line because I read it from outside the range of those lines, and now I'm just running around the map with the text on. And if I run to this one, it'll turn it off because I'll get to this one's lines. But even this, like if I read this from a maximum distance over here, I can then walk back, and now I'm just walking around with the text up. And it is almost impossible to avoid these kind of problems, I think, if you go for this line crossing solution, because the player's always going to find a way of not quite crossing the lines. And this isn't theoretical. I've seen this happen to people, and they've gotten really annoyed because this is on their screen and they're pressing escape trying to get rid of it, and they don't know what to do. They've probably got to wait for the timeout. That was probably the 25-second timeout. I'm not going to tell you can't do it this way, because it is done this way in Hedon, and Hedon is a successful game after all, so we should at least look at how it's done. So this calls script number 17, and this is the same here, by the way, so we can at least reuse the script in each place. This is script 17, so all it does is put no string into all of these data channels to clear the text, including the 9999 channel, which is where we've put our background overlays. As long as we're consistent about putting things into these data channels, these will clear them every time we use them. And we're going to do the same basic thing here in the other method. It's just the way we go about calling this function is going to be different. So let's see how I did the notes in Below the Gaudy Goblin. Here's one of the notes, and the first thing you'll notice is there are no extra lines around it for turning off the text after you've read it. It's just here and you read it. It's got script 183. So let's have a look at that. Here it is. I got it ready. Firstly, we're using the bottom overlay rather than the mid overlay. So this is bot here, and the y coordinates correspondingly are in the 70s and 80s. That's one difference, but that's not what we're here to look at. This is exactly the same as what we have in Hedon main, apart from this extra ACS execute 30 0000 at the bottom. So what this does is it executes another one of these scripts, specifically script 30 in this case, and with a bunch of zeros. If there were parameters, they would go in here. This would be these parameters, but there are none needed. So what does script 30 do? Well, let me tell you. Hold on a second, Control F. Let's search for 30 space brackets. Here it is. End reading a note. So we put this script execute on every note in the game, or in the map, I should say. And what it does is it reads in the player's X and Y coordinates, firstly. If you put a 0 in here, it's the player, it's by default. And we read in their angle that they're currently facing as well. Again, 0, this is means it will be the player. And then we start a while loop, and we check whether the distance from our current position to the position that we recorded when we first read the note. And as long as the position is less than 16 pixels in world space, we will keep going around the loop, and as soon as that's no longer true, we'll break out of the loop and we will clear the text, which is a function just up here, which just puts zeros into the data channels as we saw before, clearing all the text channels that we are using. We can also break out of the loop if our delta angle gets too big. So we're checking the angle we measured when we first read the note against our new angle right now. We break out of the loop and clear the text again. Now also this my distance from, I should mention this is a function that I've written. It's right here. So we just get the position again of the player and compare it to the positions passed in here, which is what we recorded when we read the note, and return the distance, square root, just Pythagoras. You don't really need to understand any of this. You can just copy this code directly from me. Like Blake used this code in Shard Breaker. Anybody can use it. I don't care. You can open up the Gordy Goblin and just copy this code straight out and use it in your own project. Basically, what it means is you can just put at the end of every note that you make, you just put ACS execute 30 and it will sort it out for you. Look, I'll even demonstrate copy and pasting it. So we just select all of this stuff here from my distance from down to the end of the end reading a note thing. Control C, copy it. I'm going to go over to the scripts from the other map that I'm making. We're only up to map 5, so down here, just going to stick this code here. And then I'm going to put ACS execute in at the end of my potato recipe. Got 30 and then the zeros. That's the right number of zeros. Okay, boom, and now we're going to test it. Okay, let's see if it works. We read the note, we move away, it goes away. We read the note, we look away, it goes away. Very nice. Very easy, very reliable. Now we know how to make a baked potato. I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to cover. I'm going to put the code from the Gordy Goblin down in a comment below or in the description, so you don't have to load up the WAD if you don't want to. There's nothing wrong with doing it the way it's done in Hedon. Obviously, it's a very successful commercial game, so can't be that bad, can it? Well, that's the end of this one. I guess I'll see you guys later. GG.